Good morning, YouTubers. This is the ShallowCross Sports Network with the Double A, bringing you a new show. Took me a little while, but I'm bringing you a recap of what went on with the high school recruiting across the Tennessee schools that I support on this channel. And we had some success in the state, and had a lot of success. A lot of schools did out of state. But with that said, let's get right on into it. Okay, again, this is Double A, ShallowCross Sports Network. We bring you the recruiting show. A lot of things went on. A lot of people had some success in recruiting. A lot of the schools had some success in the recruiting. So we're going to talk about it here real quick. First of all, we're going to look at the recruiting class that Tennessee brought in. Was probably the most significant class of all the schools in the state of Tennessee. Tennessee did real well. Coming off that loss against Vanderbilt, but they did real well in the portal. Really, and actually, as you can see, Tennessee had, let me pop it over there to you. Tennessee had a lot of success recruiting outside the state. Just looking at it, they got Freezon Brandon. He was a 5-star out of North Carolina. And then, of course, they got Tristan Keys, a wide receiver out of Mississippi. Both of them are 5 stars. And then just looking at the numbers, Tennessee was able to pick up. They were able to pick up 7 players in the top 100 and 15 players in the top 300 out of the 28 players that they had commit. And so the biggest ones were Faison Brandon and Tristan Keys. They was both 5 stars. And then, of course, you had T.J. White, linebacker from Mississippi. Joel White, the number 1, I think he's either number 2 player behind Jared Curtis that signed with Vanderbilt as the overall players in the state of Tennessee. And then, of course, Gabriel Sender out of Baylor School down in Chattanooga. He's a 5-star on one poll, and then the other poll had him as a 4-star, but he's a 5-star in my opinion. And they were able to pick him up. And then, of course, they picked up a lot of guys in the Braden Rouse was in the top 100, along with Tyreek King, a wide receiver out of the Knoxville area. And then, of course, Kamari Blair, offensive tackle out of Clarksville. He was one of the top players they picked up also. And then Hezekiah Harris, an edge rusher. He's one of the top players. They did pretty well with Tennessee. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it looks like 9 players out of the state of Tennessee, and they did pretty good. Probably the biggest name probably that came back to him was Legend Bay. Legend Bay he's a top 100 player, and he had committed to Ohio State. And what happened was Ohio State, the guy that recruited him, he left and took the South Florida job, which was a Hartline, Brian Hartline. And, of course, when Brian Hartline left, he decided to decommit from Ohio State and come back to Tennessee. So Legend Bay He is a jack of all trades. He's what they call a Swiss Army knife. He's been clocked in the 40, I think, around 4.25. He ran a 10.2 100 meters in the state of Texas. And so he was one of the top players coming out of the state of Texas. And then, of course, they were able to flip Carter Gooden, the edge rusher, 6'4", 260 pounds. They was able to flip him also. And then, of course, there was one more player that I want to mention. Let me go to my second part right here. And you probably can't make it out. But anyway, Jordan Carter, edge rush out of Georgia, 6'3", 245 pounds. They flipped him yesterday. Also, they flipped a linebacker a defensive lineman, J.J. Finch, who was committed to Alabama, and they flipped him to the Tennessee Vols. So they did exceptionally well, picking up a number of players. And of course, one of the guys, Celeste Moore, was the only player that they had committed that they lost. And apparently, Celeste Moore, he was offered a big ton of cash from Utah, and he went back to Utah. Now you have to look at it, he's a legacy recruit. Father played for Utah, so Utah just didn't want to let him go out of the state. He was the number one prospect in the state of Utah. So that's what happened with Tennessee. And there's some more tidbits I want to mention about Tennessee. You know, they were talking about Josh Heupel and how he has done at Tennessee. He's done exceptionally well in the 5 years he's been there. A lot of people are always real quick to say, oh, he hasn't done nothing. Well, guess what? He's had 2 10-win seasons. His first year, he was 7-6. His fourth year, he was his fourth year he made the playoffs, so he was 10-2 in that year. Then the year before that, he finished 9-4. Then he had another 10-2 year before the playoffs started. And then this year, he has a chance to finish 9-4 again. So he took them out of the dumps and made them a whole lot better than what they are. And if you keep putting classes in like this, he's going to eventually get up there to close to winning that natty. So, and then the other thing too is he's 3-2 against Florida. No other coach had done that in the last decade or so since Phil Fulmer. And then he's won more Southeastern Conference games than anybody, with the exception of Alabama and Georgia. People need to remember that and take notice of that. And of course, so he's done an exceptional job. A lot of people want the defensive coordinator fired. The defense was good last year. It was suspect, but it improved every year that Josh Heupel was there with Tim Banks. Last year was bad. Now you can look at a lot of injuries took place on the defensive line. A lot of injuries took place with some of the linebackers, especially Carter, who from Smyrna, but he was hurt for a little while. And then of course he lost both starting cornerbacks. And so, but still, you got to have players to be able to step right up. And of course, the true freshman, Richmond, he stepped up and did an exceptional job for someone right out of high school. He got a whole lot better as he improved, I should say, from the first 4 or 5 ball games to a very good player. And he's going to be a good player with the size that he has. You know, he's almost 6'3", and so he's a hard guy to throw over the top of. And you saw that in that first interception that Pavia threw. He thought he had that receiver open, but Redmond was able to come up and pick that ball up and they intercepted. But with that said, their defense did not perform well. Now, offensively, they didn't perform well either, in my opinion, even though they put up a lot of numbers. You had a 1,000-yard receiver, almost had a 1,000-yard running back. I don't know if Bishop came close to 1,000 yards, but he only had 97 yards against Vanderbilt. And I think that would have put him right at the cusp of reaching 1,000 yards. Brazel had 1,000 yards receiving, and then of course Staley and Matthews had over 700 some yards, I think around 800 yards receiving. So that's good years for them. Especially Matthews is he's actually a sophomore, and then of course Staley is a redshirt freshman. So those guys played exceptionally well this year. And but anyway, that's just one of the things. So Tennessee finishes with the number 7 class overall in the country, and they still have some work to do out there. And just looking at the list, USC had 35 commits. Oregon had 21 commits. They finished second. Notre Dame had 27 commits. They finished third. Alabama had 20 commits. They finished fourth. Georgia had 30 commits. They finished fifth. Ohio State had 28 commits. Tennessee had 28, and they finished seventh. So they right behind Ohio State at number 7. Ohio State was 6. Texas, number 8, had 23 commits, and then of course Vanderbilt had 21 commits, and then they had the 5-star Jared Curtis. Then and they finished number 30. Vanderbilt did. Texas A&M finished 9th with 26 commits. Miami 30 commits at 10. Michigan 23 commits at number 11. LSU 15 commits at number 12. Washington 13 commits with 24 commits. They finished 13. Florida State was number 14 with 32 commits. And then of course Oklahoma had 24 commits. Oklahoma had 12 4-stars. And then of course Florida getting in late with John Summerall. These commits was already there, and so all the coaches that was left there once the head coach was fired, the coaches that took the reign of the team and kept it going were able to keep those commits. So that was 18 commits, and then North Carolina had 39 commits, and they finished 17. And then Clemson had 10 4-stars in their class at 18. They had 19 commits. And then Texas Tech had finished number 19, and they had 20 commits. And they had 2 5-stars in that class. And then, of course, BYU finished 20 with 19 commits. So that's the story. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what Vanderbilt picked up here in this next slide. And pop that over there. So Vandy, the big news for Vandy was Jared Curtis. Jared Curtis, he's like listed at 6'4". That may be a typo, but he's 6'4", 225 pounds. He can make all the throws. He can run with the ball. He can run zone read option. He can run that. He can run that system that Peay is running right now. He can run it, and he is actually a better and more prolific passer now than Peay is. But for is actually knowing how to control a game and run the team and run the offense, he's not Peay. 8 games into the season next year, he may be as good as Peay or better. But that was a great pickup for Vanderbilt, and what they were able to use to get Jared Curtis was the fact that he could start and play right away. Now, some of the rumors I'm hearing is nothing confirmed, but I'm hearing that they paid $2 million NIL for Jared Curtis. So anyway, they got a safety out of Maryland that was highly rated. Well, he was a 3-star. Chris Tanglio, Evan Hampton, another 4-star running back from Kentucky, 6 foot 200. He was a highly rated running back, 4-star. Mason Lewis, a cornerback out of Tennessee, and then they got he was a 4-star, and then Mitchell Smith, an offensive tackle out of Mississippi, he was a 4-star, and the rest of the players were 3s, and they did well in Texas. So just looking at it, they had 1, 2, 3, 4 players out of the state of Texas. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players out of the state of Texas. And only player they had, they picked up a couple out of Tennessee, and that's Curtis and Mason Lewis, cornerback. But it was a good class for Vanderbilt. And they still have to do some work in the portal, though, because they're going to lose. I think they're losing just about everybody on the defense, just about. And just about everybody on the offense, except for maybe a couple running backs, I think. Young, I think the running back Young is. I don't know if Alexander is Alexander may be a junior, so we may have both running backs coming back. I think Junior Sherrill, he's a senior. And I don't know what Richardson's status is. He may be up there too in the upperclassmen. But they're going to lose a lot of players because they're one of the older teams in the SEC. Now, that's a drawback to the transfer portal. When you go out and get a bunch of one-year wonders, they're good players with a lot of experience from the transfer portal, you're going to have a lot of turnover year in and year out. And that's just an example of that, a lot, especially in basketball. Most of the teams now with NIL and transfer portal, they'll lose players every year and they have to rebuild. But Vandy also picked up a tight end from Florida from Morehouse College. He transferred, and he's listed at 6'5", 270. And he was the number 5 rated tight end in the transfer portal. So that's what Vandy did. So Vandy did real well. And like I said, Vandy's finished 30th in the country. That's out of 150 FBS schools. That's real good. That's a great class. And so let's look at see what Memphis Tigers did. Memphis lost their coach, and so they had to do almost the same thing that Florida did, as well as some of the other schools, to keep a lot of the recruits in the fold. And so I'm going to slide that over here. But Memphis still hasn't hired a coach yet. And just looking, they didn't pick up any 4-star players. So you can bet that they're going to go to the portal, whoever the new coach is. But they picked up a ton of 3-star players. And just looking at the state of Tennessee, they have only 2 players from the state of Tennessee that they had committed and signed. And then, of course, they had 1, 2, 3 out of Alabama, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 out of Georgia. And then Georgia had more players from Georgia than they did any of them. Let's see, Mississippi, 1, 2, 3. So they did real well recruiting down in the state of Georgia. We just have to see. I don't have all of these players signed, so we don't know. I went out and looked at Silverfield class over in Arkansas to see if he had taken some of these players he had recruited for Memphis, and that didn't happen. So he's doing Memphis right. He's not taking the players that he'd already recruited for Memphis. So we'll have to wait and see, because it's one more day. I think 5th is when the early signing period ends, 5th of December. But that's what Memphis did. And then let's look at the next school. So Tennessee State signed 12 players. None of these guys were highly rated. I think I found 4 of these players on the 24/7 site. But I did watch a couple of these players on film. Keith Johnson, running back from my old alma mater, East Nashville, Magnet School. He's a real good running back, and he'll help Tennessee State. And then of course Paul Jones, he's a small quarterback, but on the field he can play, and so hopefully he can get some development. And then of course they picked up several offensive linemen and one defensive lineman out of Georgia, and Marquez Oliveira. So Coach Barlow has a lot of work to do, and so maybe he can sign some more high school kids at the next on February the 5th, when they have the next signing day for high school kids and transfer portal kids. But Tennessee State's gonna have to go in the portal and get some better players than what they had this year. They went 2-9, and they have to improve with this season coming up. So that's the story on Tennessee State. And then let's look at Middle Tennessee State. Coach Mason only showed that he had signed 10 players. He had one 4-star player, and he was out of Florida. And Shane, for some reason, these fonts in the St. Rochelle, I believe. He's a linebacker, 6'1", 215. But he's got a lot of work to do too. And he picked up some pretty good players that can help out. I think they won 4 games out of 12, which made a record, I think, 4-8. I think they were 4-8 this year. And so he's been given another year to see if he can improve on what he did this year. So hats off to Coach Mason. He's going to have to go in the portal and get some players. As also, he's going to have to recruit some more high school players that's out there available. And what's happening is a lot of kids didn't sign. And so you're going to have kids sign on the first week in February to a lot of schools. And then this list that I have here is going to grow for all of these schools, to include Middle Tennessee. And then let's look at the next school. The next school I had was Austin Peay. And I think Austin Peay is the last school that I cover on this channel. Austin Peay did exceptionally well. I don't have any star ratings on any of the players. I went through 24/7 and on 3, and I couldn't find any star ratings on these players. So what these guys are doing, coaches are doing, and recruiting folks are doing, they're getting the best players they can possibly get at the FCS level. And it looks like Austin Peay did better in Tennessee than Tennessee State did. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they did better in Tennessee than Tennessee State did. Tennessee did a little bit better. They had 9. Vanderbilt didn't get that many either from Tennessee also. So and I like to see Tennessee players get picked up, but they still have some work to do too, and they can go in the portal. Don't know how many seniors they're going to lose or how many people are going to go in the transfer portal, but we'll find out some. But it's a good class for Austin Peay. They picked up a transfer portal player, a quarterback, 6'5", 242 pounds, Mason Garcia. And they picked him up from ECU. Don't know if he was playing, don't know what his status is as far as what he did at ECU. He probably was a backup. And usually when you see a player transfer to the FCS level, he wasn't getting to play at the FBS level. And so he'll get to play at Austin Peay. So that's just a story on recruiting And it was a big day for a lot of schools, and hats off to all the coaches that went out there and worked, and congratulations to the players for finding teams to sign with. And then, of course, I want to talk to you about, so the playoff starts on the 19th of December. This is the FBS playoffs for the national championship. This weekend, you have a lot of conference championship games on tap, and so that's what you're going to have this weekend coming up. And so, just looking at the preliminary playoff picture, here it is right here. So you notice Vanderbilt is not in there. I think Vanderbilt's ranked 14th, but this is my last one that I did. And what's happening here is the group of five or group of six team is not in there, and that team's going to be added in on the next one I do, because it looks like Tulane or James Madison could move in there and get one of these slots. They're going to get one of them. I mean, all the conference, the 6 conference winners, I guess, or the highest rated highest rated conference gets it, and so the conference champions get this. So it looks like whoever wins that AAC, and whoever wins over there where James Madison is, James Madison could get in. I think they're in the Conference USA. They could get in too. So you could get 2 group of 5 schools in there, and then I knock out people like BYU and Miami possibly. But we'll see how everything falls into place as the week progresses. And so that's the story I wanted to let you know about. But and then, of course, going back to Tennessee's looking at their draftable players. I'm gonna get a list of the draftable players for these other schools. But and of course, Tennessee State had a player, Stewart, defensive end. He made all OVC, and I haven't seen the listing of all SEC players, as well as all Sun Belt and the AAC players that made it, because Memphis is in the AAC, and of course Middle Tennessee is in the Sun Belt. TSU is in the Ohio Big South, and they've already announced that Stewart made the first team as a defensive end / linebacker. And then they had a couple other kids get honorable mention from Tennessee State. But we'll see that probably here later on in the week. We'll see that, and that'll be announced. But with that said, if any updates come up on any of these schools as far as new players that they've picked up, because you still have today and tomorrow for high school kids to sign. And then another thing I want to let you know as fans out there, some of these kids that sign early can go on and graduate from high school and then enroll in January at the university that they signed with, and then be able to participate in spring practice. Don't know who's going to do that, but I imagine a lot of these players are going to, like Jared Curtis, I think he'll probably be at Vanderbilt to participate in spring practice. The 5 stars, top players that Tennessee signed, they'll probably do that same thing. And same way with TSU, Austin Peay, as well as Middle Tennessee State and Memphis. But with that said, I'm gonna let you know about Memphis's coach right now. they are looking at several people. One that I'm really familiar with is Helton up in head coach at Western Kentucky. He should be the front. He has a Memphis background, and he should be the front runner. And then of course you have Jerry Mack, who's the head coach at Kennesaw State. He's another name mentioned, and he's got Kennesaw State in the Conference USA Championship, and he's 9-3. He used to be a coach at Memphis and at Tennessee. And then you got several other individuals. I think one of the assistant head coach at Alabama, I think his name was mentioned. Don't know his name. I think his last name may be Wiggins, if I'm not mistaken. And his name was mentioned. And then, of course, Charles Huff at Southern Mississippi. His name has been mentioned. And he's turned Southern Mississippi into a 7-5 team in his first season after leaving Marshall and going to the Sun Belt Championship game at Marshall. So that's just a story on Memphis Tigers. And as far as basketball, you got Tennessee, I think, playing Syracuse in Nashville. I don't know if that game is today or if it's going to be Friday or Saturday. I don't know. But that's what the story is on basketball. Vanderbilt played last night, and they were up. They were playing, I think, in the ACC SEC Challenge. The SEC schools didn't do very well. I think Tennessee lost to Syracuse, so I think Kentucky lost to Duke. It was a lot of teams just, a lot of SEC schools lost. Auburn, I think Auburn may have lost also. Auburn played last night also, I think they were playing, can't remember exactly who they were playing, but the Vanderbilt was up in the game they were playing. But I think the SEC schools are losing pretty bad in this challenge. But like I say, Tennessee's going to play Illinois here at the Bridgestone Arena either tonight, tomorrow, or Saturday. I don't know for sure. But with that said, that's going to end this show. This is the ShallowCross Sports Network, and we wish you all a Merry Christmas, and I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. And God bless, and we'll see you on the next show. The AA. We're out.